few people here now, so I think what we'll do is we'll make a start. Okay. Okay, so let's first of all look at the basics. Don't worry, Sheila, it's fine. You're here now. Okay, so let's look at the basics. What do we need to do with OET writing? Okay, the letter we write needs to have clear purpose. It needs to have a clear purpose. If you receive this letter, you need to be able to do the job that you're being asked to do. So it needs to have a clear purpose. Okay, to have a clear purpose, what do we need? If you're writing something and you want it to have a clear purpose for someone else to receive it, what do you need to write that letter? What do you need to know? What do you need to do if you're going to do that? Any ideas, suggestions? Yeah, you need to think, what kind of letter? To have a clear purpose, you need to know the function of the letter. Give what is asked, as in what is asked.
Still not,
okay.
I'm afraid.
So that's the function of the letter, isn't it, really? No, it's not me. So you need to understand the function of the letter. Okay. Yeah, we need information about the patient.
I think it's you.
Yeah. And think about it from a structural perspective. We need organization. Organization of patient information. Now, if you've got those three things,
have you written anything?
If we've got this,
well, I don't know how to communicate. What do you think?
Let's put an E there. Let's put organize and. Okay, so we need to understand the function of the letter. We need to have information about the patient, and we need to organize, the patient data. Okay, so those things, we need to find it in the case notes and in the task. To have these, to have the above knowledge, you need to look at the case notes, the summary, the case notes, and the task. So the other day when we did our introduction to writing, we had a look at a task. Well, let's go look at one now.
I did double check my settings.
Okay, so in here we've got lots of tasks, which we can share with you. But if we have a look at, say, what was one we looked at earlier? Goldstein, I think it was quite a good one. If we look at this one, this was a task which was made by E2 Learning, who they made the resources for OET for a long time. So if we go and have a look at this, we've got here the summary of who she is. Okay, so if I snip that out, this is the beginning of the task. Okay, so we take that and we'll paste that in here. There's the notes. Let's make that a touch smaller. And then we'll go back. We'll take that off. Then we need to go back here. Then we've got the case notes themselves. We've also got the task here. Okay, so let's snip that as well. Okay, so we need to look at the summary, the case notes, and the task. So right now, we're not going to look at the case notes just for this moment. We're just going to look at the summary and the task. This is the task itself. This is the summary here. Summary just gives us a little idea about who this person is and what's happened to them. And then the task tells us a lot of information. So if we look at this, now we found out there who the patient is, we know her age, we know what her problem is, and then we can see why she's in hospital. So we've got a very good idea already about who the patient is and what the problem is. Now if we look at the task, you are the charge nurse at the hospital where Mrs. Goldstein was admitted 3 days ago for treatment of a dislocated elbow. Okay, so they combine, we know it's a dislocated elbow. Using the information in the case notes, write a discharge letter, so we know what the task is now, to the supervisor at Eventide Residential Care Home. So straight away, just by looking at these two things, what do we know? Okay, we can say we know the patient, we know the reason for hospitalization, English spelling. We know the patient name, patient age. We know the reason for hospitalization, but what else do we know about, let's think about what do we know about the task? Is there anything else that we know? What can help us start writing this letter now? Sudhira, good point. Okay, let's think about it. We know who we are writing to. We know the recipient, or receiver we can call them here. And we know that the receiver knows the patient. We know it's a discharge. Okay, so this is enough information for me to begin. I can now write my introductory paragraph. I've already got a good idea now about what part of the case notes I need to think about. So just by looking at these two, we found all this information out. I know what my task is now. I know I need to write a discharge letter about the elbow injury. I know it's a discharge letter for someone who's recovered from an elbow dislocation, and I know that the person I'm writing to knows the patient. Now, if I know that the receiver knows the patient, what does that tell me about the case notes? What does that make you think when it comes to the case notes? Now, we haven't even looked at the case notes exactly, Fry. We don't need the history. There's something else we don't need, Fry. What else don't we need? Not just medical. Social background, yeah. So this is how we can begin. This is how we start saying, right. As I've said before, I always use cooking as a metaphor. If you've never cooked anything in your life, you've got no idea how to begin cooking. It's really difficult. You need someone to say, this is what you do. You take this, 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 and this. If you're making this, then you use this thing. If you're making that, you use that thing. It's exactly the same as writing this letter. If you follow these rules at the beginning, then you can write the letter. So let's look at the questions we need to ask ourselves. Alan and I both agree that these are the key questions that you need to ask yourself at the beginning of any task. What type of letter am I writing? Is it a discharge? Is it a referral? Is it a transfer? Transfers are basically just referrals. What is the health problem the patient has? What's the context? Why are we writing about this patient? What's the problem that they have been suffering with? And then we need to think, well, has that problem finished? Is it something which is over now and they're being discharged and they're just having some rehab or something after an operation? Or is the problem getting worse and we're referring them to someone else for their professional opinion on it or their assessment? What is the job of the person I'm writing to? Now that's important. If we look at this task, who are we writing to? Who is the receiver of this letter? The supervisor? Now it's an interesting question. You'd have to think that at a residential aged care home that the supervisor would be someone who understands medical language. You'd have to think that, and that they weren't just a lay person. So we know what kind of language we can use, the appropriate language. This is a person that will be dealing with medical problems and elderly people on a daily basis. Do they know the patient already? Yes. Can I leave out the medical background? What will they do next? Okay, that means what do we require? What do we require the receiver to do? And what information do they need? Okay, so if you ask yourself these questions, it's a really good way to begin thinking about your task. So how long do you have to do an OET writing task? Do you know how long you need to do it? 45 minutes. Okay. And how is that 45 minutes split up? Is there one section for something and another section for another? What? 5 minutes of reading? Yeah, Sandy. 5 minutes of reading, 40 of writing. Now, 180 words does not take 40 minutes. Okay. It does not take 40 minutes to write that number of words. I think that what you need to do is more than 5 minutes of planning. Okay? I think that you shouldn't be writing until you've got a clear idea of what your paragraphs are. So this would be my seventh question. What will I put in each paragraph? It's also the same question as what function will each paragraph have? What am I trying to say in each paragraph? And if you think about it, let's think about the parts of OET writing. You've got an introduction, got medical history, social background and history. Other things, I mean, we're just talking about stuff that you would include. You don't really ever include hobbies or career history in there. It's not very, very, very rarely pertinent or relevant. Then you've got medical or hospital progress. And you've got nursing management, discharge plan, and you've got referral requirements. Think about it. Can anyone think of anything else? Recommendations. I suppose recommendations are in the discharge plan. Probably. They don't often go separate to that. You've got medication information. Now, if you think about it, you never need all of that stuff. Okay? You're always going to need an introduction. Probably going to need either hospital or medical progress in every task. You know, if it's a referral, I suppose medical progress and medical history are really similar in some cases. But you're probably going to need hospital progress or medical progress. So hospital progress would be them getting better, wouldn't it? Or recovering. But medical progress would be almost the same as their medical history. Yeah, that's what we'll call that. We'll just call that medical history. Yeah. So medical history would be probably a history of getting worse. That's normally why they put a medical history in. We normally say they first presented in March and they had gastric reflux. Then they presented in April and the gastric reflux was worse and was accompanied by vomiting. They came back in June and we did this test and it came back positive and it turns out they got laryngeal cancer or something like that. So medical history, normally getting worse. So it could be any of these. Nursing management. Now I think that that's quite a misleading phrase because nursing management, the way it's used in the tasks that I've seen, are recommendations. How you should manage a patient, not how they have been managed. Okay. Discharge plan, recommendations, we know what that is. And then we've got medication and we've got referral requirements. So if you think about it, we could probably put these into a flow chart, couldn't we? Or we could put them into a table at least and say which ones belong together. So if let's put them like this. Let's say that this is a discharge letter. This one's a referral. I'm not saying that this is always 100% the way it's going to be, but generally your referrals are going to have a medical history of getting worse. Your discharge letters are generally going to have hospital progress where they're getting better and recovering. Nursing management, that's probably going to be in the discharge letter. Discharge plan and recommendations is going to be in here. Medication, now medication could be in both. Probably going to be in the discharge. Could be in the referral. Social background and history now. You're going to put one of those in. Quite often, not in a discharge letter, but you're going to put it in a referral because it will be some kind of like a psychological referral. And in the medical history, it's probably going to be a physical referral. something wrong with the body, and referral requirements, obviously you're going to put that in here. And then you're going to have introductions in both of them. Let's think about those structures. Now, I'm not saying that it will always be this way, but there's a very good chance that you're going to structure it like that. Let me just make sure everything should be in the middle. Why it's not doing it. There we go. So does that make sense to people? So there are certain things that you need to ask yourself at the beginning. You need to ask yourself, what type of letter is this? What kind of health problem is it? Is it psychological? Is it physical? That can change the kind of notes that are relevant. Well, transfers, Keela, are basically the same as a referral. When I've seen it, it was just a case of moving a patient from one hospital to another, but I've only seen it once. And the reason that they were moved is because the facilities in the next hospital were more appropriate. So that's just a referral, just the same thing. Is this going to be a nurse? Is this going to be a medical professional? Or a lay person, as we call them? Is this going to be a discharge or a referral? Is it going to be psychological? Is it going to be physical? Is it going to be medical? Or is it going to be lifestyle? You know, sometimes it's just a case of making suggestions to people. Another important thing here is, so do they know them already? Can I leave out the medical background? Now, what do we require the receiver to do? Let's think about what things the receiver needs to do. It could be an assessment if it's a referral. It could also be it could be an assessment if there's a discharge as well. That happens sometimes. So assessments could happen at home. It could happen in the ward. So we've got assessments. We've got ongoing care. We've got rehabilitation and physiotherapy. Any other things that you think could be advice or guidance required? Could be assistance with household chores. Because lots of these patients are elderly, aren't they? Don't we see? These are also important for us. We need to be aware of where they're going. So if we think about it, those actions are going to be here, aren't they? This is where we put them. If we make this, let's make that blue, and we'll make this part blue. This is where we're going to put it. If we think about it in terms of structure, maybe what I could do, I'd like to get an arrow and put it here, but it's difficult to, I don't know how I could do that. I'll try and do it. But basically what we're doing is we're going through, aren't we? Hospital progress, that's going to include admission. This is going through in time, isn't it? So each time when you write a letter, you're going to go through like that. Now, sometimes the medication might be at the end, sometimes it might be in the middle. We'll take it and we'll put it somewhere here. there's more than one way to skin a cat. But this, for me, is how you flow through. So if you've got this in your mind about how you would structure a discharge letter and how you would structure a referral letter, just a loose plan, then really, if you know that your first paragraph is your introduction, then you've probably got a good chance of knowing that the first paragraph is going to be the admission and what happened in hospital. Probably, most of the time, it's going to be like that. And all of these things are flavored by whether they know the patient already and what we require the receiver to do. So what we're trying to aim for here is the underlying logic, the reason, the purpose for the letter. So what I think would be a good idea for us to do is to go and have a look at another one. Well, actually, sorry, we can look at the one that we've got here already. So we've already looked at the task. We've looked at the summary. So this person's had a dislocated elbow. They've recovered from it, and now they're being discharged back to their care home, and we're asking for this person to give them full-time care. Okay, they're just going back into full-time care, so we're just writing to the supervisor and saying this person needs full-time care. Okay, so let's go through and have a look at the notes, and let's think to ourselves, which ones do we think are important? I'm just gonna take this. Yeah, let's put this in here. Now we're putting the notes in. And we will do another snip. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. Nope, wrong one. Sorry, I'm in the wrong place there. Here we go, sorry. I'll get it soon, don't you worry. Okay, there we go. Right, okay, so let's go through and have a look at the notes. Can anyone tell me, as we go through, marital status, married, do we need to mention this? No, we don't need to mention that. What do you think is the first piece of information on this page that we need to mention? The diagnosis. Okay, I think we need the diagnosis, yeah. But is that the first thing that we need? Is there nothing else? Sheila, exactly. Admission date is important. And discharge date is important as well. Then the diagnosis, okay. Name is important, yeah. Yeah, we've got name, we've got the age, but this is the age of the family, isn't it? We've already got the age in the summary. So we've got the admission date, we've got the discharge date, we've got the admission diagnosis. We don't need anything else here, do we? We don't need medical history. To discharge to someone we know. Then we've got to mention here, ready for discharge. We've got the right elbow in a cuff, skin's intact, uses a wheelchair. All of this stuff is basically the situation this person is in now, the state. Well, all of this is important because it's been a few days since the supervisor at the care home has seen the patient. So we are the people that need to explain the state or the condition that that patient's in. So here we'll use this. Medication. I think that's important. But are any of these related to previous illnesses? Atacand and Remeron, are they related to Alzheimer's or anything like that? Remeron, that sounds like some kind of Alzheimer's to me. Let's go and have a look. Remeron, let's have a look. It's so slow today. What's it for? What is it used for? Oh, it's used to treat depression. All right, it doesn't really mention anything, does it? I assume that it's something which is related to their ongoing issues. And then we've got this information here, the discharge plan. So it's important for you to understand what you're looking for in the case notes before you look at them. If you ask yourself these questions, then you're going to be able to start your letter. After this, so this is basically using the case notes. Once you've done these ones, we're going to move on to number 7. You're going to decide your structure. You're going to say what is in each paragraph. Okay, so let's say you go through and do all of these. You've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now you're at the time where you're choosing the structure. What comes next? What do you think would be point 8? Anyone have any suggestions? Exactly, Janet, yeah. Start writing. Oops. Start writing, that is absolutely it. So what we've done is, we've gone from having a set of case notes, we've had a look at the summary at the beginning, we've had a look at the task, we've gained all of this information just from looking at those things. Then we can go and have a look at these questions. So I would say that these are essential questions. Absolutely essential for us. So that I'm not very happy with the font that I'm using here. So these are the essential questions. You ask these questions, then you'll be in a good position. You know, you might then make some grammar mistakes, who knows, but that's where your grammar practice comes in. The actual technique for writing these tasks is not so tough, but you have to practice it. So find out who it is, what you're doing, who you're writing to, what you're writing about. Then choose the structure, and then start writing. Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay, none so far. Right, that's a funny thing to say. No, you're right. Now you have to go and do the words. And this is if you think about what we're doing, all of us in these classes, practicing every day. What are we doing? We're practicing grammar, technique, and words. vocabulary. That's what we're here to do. You know, once you learn the exam technique, basically what you're trying to do is to get the phrases right. Okay? Well, Fry, that's something that you need to be prepared for. I know in IELTS, if you don't understand a word, you're supposed to use the context. I would guess that most of the time, you only write one letter, Sandy. Only one letter. But Fry, most of the time there shouldn't be words that you don't understand. That's up to you in the next few weeks to practice the kind of language that's included in the letters. Okay.